Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today I wanted to talk about horrible, deadly spiders. But first, please like and subscribe. It helps me out a lot, keeps the channel growing. So this is a little late to the party. This is a paper that came out in January, but it's about funnel web spiders in Australia, which you may know as the most venomous spiders in the world, and once upon a time, extremely deadly before the advent of a functioning antivenom in the 80s. And this paper comes from both Australia and Hamburg, Germany. The world's most venomous spider is a species complex. So in this case, what it means is that they have functionally identified more species that they originally thought were this Australian funnel web spider, Atrax robustus. And not only is it multiple species, but actually one of these species in this species complex is far larger and far more dangerous than the others, and it's a brand new identified species to Australia. So Atrax robustus is kind of the iconic deadly spider from Australia, the Sydney funnel web spider. They tend to be fairly large, 1 to 1.5 inches generally, but someone noticed that in a specific region of Eastern Australia, spiders kept coming into the museum that were far too large and far too venomous compared to all of their spider siblings. So this got the researchers curious as to what was going on here. This original Atrax robustus was identified back in the 1800s as this extremely dangerous spider that people had to worry about, specifically the males, which are extremely venomous and also tend to get into people's homes because the males leave their burrows in order to find females. So this was the concern back in the 1800s before antivenom. Sometime in the early 1900s, there was a second species that they thought they had identified, Atrax montanus, which was again later synonymized in. They thought, well, maybe this is just a misidentification. There's just this one species. And that has also now been thrown out. It's now identified that there is this other species, Atrax montanus. So there's now multiple species within this complex. But historically, the primary interest in research on these spiders was because of how dangerous they are. People would get bitten, especially children, because they would not be avoiding these spiders, and the children would be specifically susceptible to this extremely dangerous venom. By the 1980s, we had developed better antivenom, and so deaths from this spider had really dropped off. In fact, there haven't been any recorded deaths from a bite in decades. I believe the last death from one of these spiders was actually a man driving, and he brought down his sun visor, and one of these spiders fell out while he was driving, and it caused him to crash the car, and he died from that. So death by spider, but not from spider bite. But primarily the research has been focused on the venom properties and not necessarily the taxonomy of the group or what other species might be present. There has been a large collection of these spiders because the spiders have to be collected from the wild in order to produce the antivenom. The male spiders are collected usually by amateur spider enthusiasts and submitted for venom milking, and then the specimens will end up going to museums. This is where someone noticed anecdotally that something was very wrong with some of these spiders coming in, specifically spiders coming in from Newcastle, Australia, which is on the southeast coast, up here in the blue, that the spiders were larger and more venomous than they should be. So generally speaking, these Atrax robustus spiders are about an inch across, 1.5 inches, and some of these were coming in well over 2 inches and far more venomous than they should be. These researchers began examining these spiders, and what they found is actually there are at least 5 distinct species of Atrax, and one of them is a brand new species to science. They did find that Atrax montanus is a real species, even though it was kind of deleted from the records back in the 1900s. And the new species, Atrax christenseni, is this very large species found in Newcastle. They didn't want to tell anyone where they were in case they are endangered or something, but they did say it is within 25 kilometers of this town of Newcastle. So how do you tell these spiders apart? So this is Atrax christenseni. It is much larger. The holotype appears to be kind of this red color, and this is the male. And the males are easier to tell apart than the females because the males have this embolus a bulb and embolus sort of structure, which is part of the reproductive system of the males, which you may have never noticed on a spider before. But male spiders have on their palps, or some male spiders have on their palps, this bulb and embolus, which is this long tube used to fertilize females. So this is how the sperm is inserted. The females don't have this on their palp, but the males do. And on this new species of Atrax, it is extremely large. So this is what it looks like, the two palps off the male. You can see these very large bulb and embolus for insertion into the female. And if you look at this structure across species, you can see obvious difference. This one is robustus, this is montanus, this is christenseni. This is the new species here. So the new species has this much larger bulb and embolus that it uses to insert into the females. And then within the females, the spermathecae within the females, again, robustus, montanus, and christenseni, the spermatheca is much longer than it is wide, whereas in robustus, it's much smaller. So this isn't something that you would want to try to identify if it's scurrying around your house, but it is a much larger overall spider. The cool thing about this paper isn't just that it's a new, much deadlier, much larger spider previously unknown in Australia, although now this is definitely considered the worst. But this does have implications for antivenom research and antivenom production. It's possible that you can make better, more specific antivenoms if you know that this much more dangerous, much more venomous spider is present in the area, like around Newcastle. You can specifically tailor the antivenoms to the more likely spider bite in the area. Although, unfortunately, with these spiders, there does seem to be quite a bit of overlap between like montanus and robustus. The Sydney Basin tends to be full of these little guys, but you at least have the option of a better tailored approach with the antivenom in case people get bitten. So that's pretty neat. So I'll link this paper. It's fairly long, but because it's a taxonomy paper, a lot of it is just the description of the specimens, which takes up a lot of space. So you don't necessarily have to read the entire description, but I will link that in the description, and I'll talk to you guys later.